Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the EMPWR Podcast. I am Sam, your host, and I am so excited for today's episode. We have an amazing guest that's coming on, Amy Migdalia. She is a nutritional therapy practitioner, owner of Restor3 Your Health. And y'all, I've been following her for a hot sec, and she has so much information and education out there, especially on her Instagram, around living a clean lifestyle when it comes to beauty, eating, household products. So we're going to talk about it all today. So let's get started. Hi, Amy.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Oh my goodness. Thanks for coming on. I've been so excited for this episode because first off, I have like 800 questions I want to ask you, and it's hard when you only have an hour. But for those that don't know you and your story and kind of, about your career, can you share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner. But didn't start out that way. I really started out in the fitness industry. So I was a college athlete, and for years, my thoughts on health were, if you looked a certain way, then you were healthy. So it was all about aesthetics and how you looked on the outside. And it wasn't until like college and grad school that, dealing with my own internal issues, skin issues, bloating, that I realized health is not just about what's going on the outside. It's also what's going on the inside. And some of the most stunning people on the outside were actually struggling big time internally with different health issues. So it wasn't until after I had kids that I realized, okay, what I put in, on, and around my body really matters. Our second child actually sprayed bleach in his eye when he was 1.
Oh my gosh.
And it freaked me out. I was like, okay, let me turn the product around and see what I need to do. And it was like skulls, flames, like all of these horrible things, call poison control, and I freaked out. And I had a conversation with my husband and I'm like, why do we have this stuff in our house? And that was really the rabbit hole that I went down. It was like, let me clean up the products in my home so that I am not nervous that if my kids were to accidentally use them, spray themselves in the eye, that this is not like a poison control situation. And so ruthlessly went through the house, cleaned up our cleaning products, laundry detergents, body washes, deodorants, everything you can think of, like a mad woman. And my husband thought I was going crazy. And then after that, that's when I really did a deep dive into okay, well, what exactly are we putting in our body? Because in the generation that we grew up in, it was calories in, calories out.
For sure.
Low fat, low sugar. There was really no discussion about the actual ingredients that were in that. So I was very much a part of it's a 100-calorie pack, so it's healthy.
Right. Or organic. Right.
Or gluten-free or low fat, just all of these things that I got sold on the front. So then I was like, you know what? Let me actually turn the product around and see what ingredients I'm actually putting in my body and my kids' bodies. And that led me down the rabbit hole of nutrition. And I went back to school, got my certification, and opened my own business going on 4 years ago.
Oh my goodness. So this is 4 years. That's not a long time ago.
Yep.
Okay. And so how old is your oldest?
She will be 9 soon.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Wow. That's amazing. Okay. Yeah. So a lot of just education over the last few years for you. Did you notice when you started making these tweaks when it came to household products and clean eating and just removing those, ingredients that are causing harm? Did you notice a difference in how you felt?
100%.
And tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So actually, when my husband and I met in college, I had only known him to be popping Allegra and Zyrtec every single day to control his allergies. He snored at night. The only way that he could function was taking allergy medicine. Otherwise, he couldn't breathe properly. And that was one of the biggest changes that we noticed. So once I started removing all of the harsh chemicals, fragrances from the home, his allergies went away.
Wow.
Today, he does not take Allegra or Zyrtec at all. His snoring stopped in the middle of the night. Some of my kids' skin issues started to go away. And then when we started doing a deep dive into ingredient labels, my kids were struggling with digestive issues, constipation, all of that cleared up. So I literally watched it happen for my family first. Then I started helping friends and family, extended family, and I was getting them results. And they're the ones who actually pushed me to go back to school. They're you need to do this,
it's
and
a
help
calling,
other people.
Right.
Yeah. And you should charge for this. And I'm like, well, I don't have a certification behind my name. And at that point I had read and researched so many books, articles, studies, So like I had a really good grasp on it and I felt like I can help people, but I needed the credentials.
Right.
And so that's why I went back. And every single person that we've worked with up until this point, which even though we haven't been in business long, it's almost 1,000 people that we've helped.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing.
It is unbelievable. Still to this day, like I shouldn't be shocked, but it's still unbelievable the results that people get for their health.
Right. And I feel like kind of to your point earlier, when it comes to just like our generation, I feel like we're the ones that did a lot of this, like, okay, let's dig into it, figure this out. And, hopefully, future generations will kind of just have that education already because of it. But again, like to your point, like this wasn't talked about. So I myself, just like the past 5 to 10 years as well, really the past 5 years have same, right? When it comes to what I'm putting on my skin, when it comes to air fresheners and cologne, perfume, which is like a big one for endocrine disruptors and all that, my makeup, and then food, which I want to get into. But I would like to talk about, because I feel like a lot of people just don't know where to start. So what would you suggest to somebody who's like, okay, maybe I have allergies, maybe I have skin issues, but also like endocrine disruptors, like my hormones, when it comes to what we're putting on our skin and our household, like where would you say to start?
Yeah, so I always tell people when it comes to your environment, because we take a 3-step approach to health: eating, environment, extras. So environment is just as important as your eating. Because
should we start with eating or does it matter?
I always have people start with eating.
Okay, let's talk nutrition first then. Okay.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Are you sure?
This
okay.
Is easy. Excuse me. So when it comes to your environment, I tell everybody to start with the big 5. And that is your cleaning products, your laundry detergents, your dryer sheets, your candles, and your room sprays, or anything that would scent a house or scent a room in your house.
Okay.
The reason why I say start there is because your cleaning products touch every surface in your home. Your laundry detergent touches all your clothing, your underwear, your sheets, your bedding, your pillowcases, your towels. So that's pervasive. Mm-hmm. So these big 5 are the things that are going to be most pervasive in the home. And if you can clean these 5 up, you're going to be doing really, really good. You're going to be like cleaning the air in your home. It's going to have a huge impact. Mm-hmm. And then candles and room sprays are things that are pervasive in the home because they scent the entire home.
Right.
And I tell people the non-toxic swaps don't have to be expensive. Like the candles and room sprays, that's a simple elimination. It doesn't cost you anything to get rid of something. You don't have to replace it with something. Your cleaning products, yes, you can go buy, a non-toxic brand, but it could be as simple as using vinegar and baking soda and making this stuff at home. So I am a big proponent for, making the swaps, but also letting people know that it doesn't have to break the bank.
Right. And then like when it comes to like perfumes and stuff, like you can even like make your own, like, right? Like essential oils.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
And I would also argue that if you're dealing with body odors, that's a gut imbalance.
Right. I've always heard that too.
Yes. And it's so true. So anytime there are imbalances in the gut, and we do stool testing in my business. And so we see stool tests and read them and analyze them all the time. And so when people have gut imbalances or, dysbiotic or inflammatory flora in their gut, or maybe they're dealing with H. pylori or something like that, that can also be tied to body odor.
And same with bad breath, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, your mouth is an oral microbiome, right, just like your gut is. So all of it's connected. The body is connected. And so body odor is what I tell people is symptoms nowadays are common, but they're not normal. Mm-hmm. So like if you're bloated or you have loose stools or you have some massive body odor, like look into that. That's the body telling you that something is not right or not balanced.
Something's imbalanced. That's crazy. So when it comes to like the household products and things like that, so I actually switched a couple of years ago to Branch Basics.
I love it.
And I love it. And honestly, like, cause I feel like there's this perception that, oh, well, if I switch to non-toxic and clean, it's going to be super expensive. But really, it's like with that refillable guy, it's not at all.
I agree. The cost up front is more expensive, right, like if you get the starter kit. Right. But then after that, the only thing that you buy is the refill. And it over time, it ends up being much cheaper.
Right. So something, you mentioned skin issues with your kids. I noticed that. So my oldest has like a lot of sensitivities, and we've cut out a lot when it comes to like food ingredients, but also like household products. And when we switched to Branch Basics, like all of his eczema went away. It was wild.
Yeah.
We were like, holy cow. But it's just, again, like people just aren't educated, which again, I think is our generation being able to bring that awareness, and social media helps. Like,
absolutely.
I feel like we learned so much, and obviously your page, I love your like, let's talk about it series. Like there's so many good ones. Oh my goodness. So I love it. So, okay, talk to me about eating, because like nutrition is my thing. Obviously I'm like a nutritionist, I'm a personal trainer. As many people that come to me that are like, hey, I want this body or to look this way. So much of it comes from nutrition, but it's not just eat enough protein, eat your vegetables. It's the inflammation part of making sure you're cutting out certain foods that carry that inflammation because of the ingredients. So what would you say when it comes to somebody starting that journey with nutrition, but really focusing on removing inflammatory ingredients? What would you like, what's your go-to products, like top 3 that you'd say, hey, let's remove these?
Oh, easy. Seed oils.
Yep.
Refined sugars, and ultra-processed foods.
Yep.
Those are our big ones. And ultra-processed foods really covers a lot, because really anything out of a bag or a box is going to be ultra-processed, which means if you eliminate that, you're sticking to the perimeter of the grocery store. Which is, your vegetables, fruits, your produce, your meats, your cheeses, nuts, seeds, seafood, eggs, like from the farm to the fork, which is how your body was designed. Like,
Right.
that's what your body was designed to eat. Your body wasn't designed to eat food that was made in a lab. It just wasn't. And so if people can remove those 3 things and stick to eating real whole foods, 9 times out of 10, no, I'm going to say 10 times out of 10. 10 times out of 10, you will notice a drastic difference in your health.
And like quickly.
And very quickly.
I noticed that when I kind of switched that lifestyle, and even my boyfriend. So we've been dating for a little over a year now, and I'm calling him out right now, so don't get upset, Ian. But
okay.
like he would eat a sleeve of Oreos and like things like that. And just because he was not aware of the ingredients, and you know what I mean? And it, not just like, oh, it's a bad food for you, but why, And so kind of giving him that insight when he cut out a lot of those ultra processed foods, he like lost inches around his waist and felt so much better.
Oh yeah.
And within like a week.
Oh yeah.
Which is
it
crazy.
might take some people a little bit longer if they're relatively healthy,
Sure.
but they're like maybe trying to like, lose the last few pounds or tone. But I mean, everyone should be doing that from a nutrition standpoint, and you will feel amazing.
So seed oils, refined sugars, ultra processed foods. All right, let's talk about when you go out to eat. What do you do? Because like obviously they will cook sometimes with seed oils. How do you watch out for the refined sugars? When it comes to all these ingredients that they put in there, like what's a good way to order at a restaurant? What's your insight?
I'm actually pretty particular about where I will go out to eat. So I'm a big proponent of getting people back in the kitchen. Like, we have got to cook more. I always tell people convenience is killing us, right? So we don't walk anymore. We sit behind a desk all day. We don't cook anymore. We DoorDash, Uber Eats, or go out to eat. We have the convenience of technology. We're not working with our hands. And there's so many other examples, but all of these conveniences in life have come at a cost, and it's our health. So I'm a huge proponent first for you to cook as many meals at home as possible. In the event that you're going to eat out, what we do in my family, and maybe not everyone does this, but like there are great apps like Seed Oil Scout. And they've already done the work for you. So in Nashville, there's tons of restaurants here that don't use seed oils, and they opt for using animal fats like beef tallow or duck fat or butter or olive oil or something like that. So I do my research on that end. And then when I go out to eat, I stick to the whole food items. So I'm going to stick to like meat, vegetables, fruits, things that I would see on the farm, right? Is it raised on the farm? Is it grown on the farm? Like I tell people, you don't grow crackers in the ground. There's not a cracker tree. There's not an Oreo bush.
I'm sure my boyfriend would love that.
Yeah, so that's what I tell everybody. Like, if it's raised on the farm or grown on the farm, eat it. And I order the same way out that I would cook at home. And so there's a little bit of, planning or preparation or research, if you will. But to me, it's worth it.
It is, because it makes you feel good and you know you're fueling yourself.
Yes.
And that's something that I tell a lot of my clients too, is just like keeping it simple.
Yep.
And a lot of restaurants, I feel like sometimes we get nervous if we are out and ordering to be like, oh, will they modify and create an own plate for me? But like a lot of the times I'm like, hey, can you just cook a grilled chicken breast, a side of broccoli, and a baked sweet potato?
Yep.
And like cook it in butter or olive oil.
Yeah.
And, it's like,
and that's another great point. Yes. So many restaurants, even if they still use seed oils, you can ask them like, what oils are you using or what entrees on the menu can we swap?
Right.
Right? Like most of the time a steak, if it's on the grill, they're not using oils.
Right.
Or like, your vegetables, you can tell them to steam them. Or like I love a baked potato because all you have to do is ask for a side of butter. So there are different things on the menu that you can get around if you're at a restaurant that's not necessarily seed oil friendly. But I think that's a great point.
Seed oil Scout. So
yes, it's an app.
Yeah, and I actually just found out about that somehow. But I'm like, this is amazing and we need this all the time.
Yes.
It's so good.
Yes. They've done all the legwork and like have looked at, all major cities and which restaurants use what oils so that you like have the information, you're armed, and you know exactly where to go or not go.
Right. Okay. So I want just for our listeners to kind of understand, because they're probably like, why seed oils? Because I feel like there is this like back and forth of, is seed oils really that bad for you? Like back and forth I've seen on Instagram. So kind of talk to me about what that's doing internally to us.
Yeah, I think it's a great question that needs to be brought up because a lot of people don't understand it.
Right.
So the way that you understand whether seed oils are bad for you is in the classes of fats. So there's 3 classes of fats. There's saturated fat, monosaturated fat, and polyunsaturated fatty acids. Saturated fat is the most stable form of fat, meaning it's not highly reactive to light, oxygen, heat. It's solid at room temperature. Those are your animal-based fats, okay? On the other end of the spectrum are the polyunsaturated fats. These are the least stable forms of fat. Okay, that means they're highly reactive and will oxidize when exposed to light, oxygen, or heat. Those are your seed oils, right? So your corn oils, cottonseed oils, canola oils, rapeseed oils, these are polyunsaturated fatty acids that were never intended to be exposed to light or heat. On top of that, you look at the size of a canola seed, it's tiny. In order to extract oil from canola, the amount of processing and refinement that it undergoes, the amount of light and heat that it's exposed to, by the time it hits the shelves, it's already rancid. And that oxidizes and creates free radicals and damage in the body. It can affect your metabolic health, weight gain, blood sugar, heart disease, so many things. So it's about the stability of the fat because when we're cooking, we're exposing the fat to light and heat. So you have a bottle of vegetable oil that you're picking up at the grocery store. That's already rancid and oxidized. And now you're taking it and cooking with it. So then you're exposing it further to more heat and more light. And you look at fast food restaurants, they're putting this oil in the deep fryer and they're frying food in it and the oil stays there and they're frying food in it again and again and again, over and over and over again. And that creates huge health issues in the body. Now, a raw form of a polyunsaturated fatty acid, like a sunflower seed, is fine. That's a healthy source of omega-6. Your body needs both. It needs omega-3 and it needs omega-6 in proper ratios. So if you had a sunflower seed, because sunflower oil is a seed oil, but if you just had a raw sunflower seed, you're still eating the seed. It has its fat in it. It's got its oiliness in it. That's totally fine.
Right. It's not over-processed.
Correct. Well, it's not processed at all, right? Yeah. The seed is still in its raw form. You're fine to consume polyunsaturated fatty acids in that realm. But when you take the sunflower seed, you refine it down, you highly process it to squeeze all the oil out. And then they're using different chemical agents to extract it. So hexane is a common extraction chemical or chemical that extracts. And it's not good.
Yeah, the hexane. Yeah, I've read a lot about that and like major health issues that can come from that. And
so when people say that seed oils aren't good for you, it's the processing, the refinement, and the exposure to light and heat. If you're having it in its whole raw food form, I have no issues.
Right. So what would you say, like the connection between the amount of seed oils that are in our foods, these ingredients like refined sugar, dyes, all these things, and the connection to all the disease we're seeing and cancers and like
absolutely
big correlation?
Huge correlation. I mean, you look 3 or 4 generations ago and chronic disease was not a thing.
Right.
Rates of cancer were not a thing. Autoimmune conditions, not a thing. What's changed? Right? Ultra processed foods, dyes, chemicals, preservatives, fillers, additives. I mean, amongst other things, toxins in the environment.
Right, environment
being
too.
Sedentary, not exposing our circadian rhythms jacked up because we have artificial light. Like,
right.
you know, there's a lot of factors, but the food is a big one.
Yes.
Right? Like,
and it's
people
an easy
were cooking with animal fats back in the day.
Right. And it's an easy one to change.
So
you know
easy.
what I mean? Just focusing on those whole foods. But yeah, it's like, I feel like I see so many women that are being diagnosed with breast cancer, like at such young ages. And I'm like, this was not a thing 30 years ago. But what's changed, to your point, is the environment, the foods we're eating. And what makes me so sad too, as a mom, and I know you can relate, is like all these kids that are being exposed to artificial dyes, you know, these artificial flavors, sweeteners, and just these ingredients that, you know, are just not good for them. So I want to touch on like dyes and also to natural flavors, because let's start with the natural flavors. So I feel like that's such one that's like hidden, because, you know, people say, okay, well, natural flavors aren't bad because it's natural. So like, what's your take on that?
Yeah. So you have artificial flavors and you have natural flavors. Artificial flavors can be derived from petroleum or inedible substances. Natural flavors are derived from natural things. However, the end result is really the same because both of them are made in a lab.
Right.
And the flavor scientists are essentially trying to create a flavor that has you coming back. It's like a bliss point, right? So these flavor enhancers are, I mean, I don't want to say make you addicted, but really to get you addicted to their product so that you can keep coming back. That's one. So natural flavors, yes, they can use natural ingredients, but remember, there is still a process, right? So there are processes that are not natural. So the end result after the processing and the refinement to get the flavoring is not a natural ingredient. And the other thing that I don't like about the terms artificial flavors and natural flavors is you don't know how many ingredients went into that flavor profile.
Yeah,
so it could be hundreds of ingredients and you don't know what it is.
Because the FDA like doesn't make them say, right?
Well, it's proprietary. It falls under proprietary information. So almost like trade secret would be the best way to describe it. No different than on your environmental products, the word fragrance or parfum. So companies don't have to disclose what makes up that fragrance, and it could be 100 different chemicals to make up that fragrance or smell, and you have no idea what it makes, what it's made of. So I kind of group those together, right? The fragrance in the environment products and like the artificial or natural flavors on the food side. You just don't know. Right. And I'm somebody that like, I want to know exactly every single ingredient that is in this food product, which is why, like to our point earlier, whole food doesn't require an ingredient label. When you go to the store, you know an apple is an apple.
Single ingredient.
It's a single ingredient that doesn't require a label.
Makes it a lot easier. And I feel like people have this idea that it's super expensive when in reality, it doesn't have to be.
We actually, on our Restor3 Your Health Instagram, put this to the test.
Ooh.
So I had one of my employees go to Chick-fil-A and get a meal for her and her son. And then I had another one of my employees go to the grocery store and get the most expensive options, like the grass-fed meat, the raw grass-fed cheese, the organic, this, that, and the other.
Right.
And I was like, I want to break down the cost because everybody's like, oh, well, fast food's cheaper. That's why we get it. Cost per serving, even with the most expensive ingredients, was still cheaper than the fast food meal. And it yielded 6 more servings. So she had leftovers. Whereas that one meal at that fast food restaurant, that's only one meal. Now, had we gone to the store and I said, don't get the grass-fed option, just get the regular ground beef, the regular vegetable, the regular rice, and the regular cheese, cost per serving would have been even lower. So actually, getting whole food ingredients at the grocery store and cooking it at home yourself is always cheaper. Whether you can afford the conventional or like, the grass-fed, like if you can't afford the grass-fed, just get the conventional beef. It's going to be better than going to McDonald's or Chick-fil-A or fast food. And it's cheaper.
Wow. Okay. Well, mic drop there. You prove your point. That's wild. There you go, guys. So it's not always more expensive in that case. I'm probably about to break some hearts with some Chick-fil-A topic here. So I need the rundown because I saw it on your Instagram, because I do feel like people think, oh, Chick-fil-A, it's not as bad as McDonald's or Wendy's. Give us the rundown on Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. So we did a post on my personal page because like you, I hear it all the time too. Well, Chick-fil-A is the healthier option.
Right.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to show people that the healthier options that they're getting, like the grilled nuggets or the kale superfood side or the Southwest salad, is not as healthy as they think it is. And so what we did in this post was like, I went directly to Chick-fil-A's website and I looked at the ingredients of all of it. And it's filled with additives, preservatives, seed oils, tons of seed oils, polysorbates. I mean, things that you can't pronounce. You don't even know what it is.
And even in the grilled chicken.
Right,
which you would think
it's
plain.
just chicken, right? Even the kale. You're like, oh, this is just kale. Nope.
Really? Without the dressing?
Yes.
That's wild.
Yes. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, the restaurant makes more money if the food lasts longer, right? So
Shelf
if you can,
life, yeah.
Yes, if you can add shelf-stable ingredients to your items and it lasts longer, then you make more money.
That's crazy.
And people were shocked. They
I'm
were
sure.
Like, oh my gosh, like what? I thought I was ordering something healthy. And I was, in the comment section, replying to people. And I said, you'd actually be better off going to McDonald's and getting a burger with no bun or sides. Like
because they don't
the
use
meat
seed
patty.
oil, right? For the burger.
For the burger patty, the ingredients are 100% USDA beef, salt, and pepper. That's it. Wow. Those 3 ingredients. So you'd be better if you were truly in a pinch. This is not an advertisement for McDonald's. Hear me out. I do not recommend McDonald's. But that was my point, is like people think, oh, well, McDonald's is way worse than Chick-fil-A.
Right.
And I was like, not really. And then Chick-fil-A apparently is reintroducing antibiotics into their chicken, which is a huge problem for me because we are already in a situation where antibiotics are handed out to kids and adults like candy. Which can cause antibiotic resistance in human beings. Well, if you're then consuming it in the meat that you're eating, you're creating that resistance in the body. So when you actually do need antibiotics for life-saving measures, when they need to be used, your body could be resistant to it.
Wow.
And then what? So I think that presents a huge problem as well. So my kids don't eat at Chick-fil-A.
Yes. Well, what I love about your Instagram too is the fact that you are so just direct, like
very
straight. This is how it is. And I remember one of your posts that was like, there are such thing as bad foods. Because I feel like we're very soft in that sense that we don't want to be like, oh, let's not label things good and bad, But to your point, like there are bad foods. Like they include these ingredients that are causing inflammation and harm to our body.
And our kids are sicker than ever.
Right. And that's the thing I see.
Like, I mean, if we're looking at our children, which is the next generation, almost half are obese. Dealing with diabetes as a child is just type 2 diabetes is crazy. Metabolic disorders, skin issues, neurological issues, like artificial dyes are linked to behavioral and neurological issues. So yeah, I don't think that we can say that there are no such thing as bad foods. There are bad foods. And I don't even want to label them food. I would say they're food products. So there are bad food products, like food-like products, okay? Because it's not even real food at that point. And so, I'm very direct. And I don't know why we think that kids can't handle the truth, right? Because I think we're doing our kids a disservice if we can tell them that smoking is bad, but we can't tell them that this particular food can create the same toxic aldehydes in their body that cigarettes do. Man. Yeah. So there's a great book on seed oils. It's called Dark Calories. And a doctor's been studying this for 20 years. I forget her name. It's called dark calories. And she said that like eating a French fry that was fried in seed oils would be the equivalent to smoking a cigarette.
Oh my gosh.
Because the same toxic aldehyde compounds that are created in the body with smoking are created in the body when you consume foods that have been fried or cooked in seed oils. So I can't sit here and know this information and then tell my kids, you know, honey, there's no such thing as bad foods. It's okay. Everything in moderation. Or we're not going to tell our kids to smoke or do drugs in moderation.
Right.
We're going to tell them, hey, this is bad for your body and you shouldn't do this. We have to educate. And the kids can handle it.
Right.
So
that's such a good point. And like, I mean, honestly, like you said, like you're hitting it straight, because I feel like when it comes to the cigarettes and, you know, a lot of the alcohol, it's like those studies have been done like years prior. We've realized, okay, this is not healthy, right?
Right.
I feel like we're just in that when it comes to a lot of these ingredients like seed oils and artificial sweeteners and these things. So it's like, hopefully that will come about and reveal itself. And I do think, you know, with our new director of health, then things are about to hopefully get into shape when it comes to education and just really changing things, because it's like other countries have already taken things out, like these dyes, right? When it comes to their candies. And it's like, why is the US still allowing these ingredients in these products?
Yeah. I probably have a more controversial take on that. Because I tell people, I'm like, don't rely on the government for your health.
No, well, I mean, I would agree with that.
I am very optimistic about the future, no doubt. And I think education is so important. But if you're relying on the government to make these choices for you or tell you what's good or not good, or I'll wait until they remove this, you're missing it. Right. You're missing it. And so I come at it from a standpoint of like, I want every single person to have this knowledge so that they can make the best choices for their family. And I'm not somebody who's going to wait around for a government official to tell me that something is good or bad, because government officials in the past have told me things were good when they were bad, right?
Correct.
I mean, think about how much demonization of steak and eggs and butter, like, oh, you're going to get heart disease. And I'm like, no.
Like the whole cholesterol.
Correct.
Right. I worked in the cardiovascular field for like 10 years, and specifically when it came to cholesterol. And so like I saw a lot of what they were saying about like changing your diet and lifestyle and, you know, not eating eggs, not eating butter, when I'm like, it's honestly, if you're picking the right types, that's good for you. Your body likes it.
Absolutely. And LDL is just doing what it's supposed to do. LDL is going to the site of injury or inflammation and repairing it. So if we see somebody with elevated LDL, we don't automatically assume negative cardiac event. We're like, okay, what is causing the elevation of LDL? Is it an underlying infection? You know, is it underlying inflammation? You know, there's a lot of factors, like you said. So we really have to stop demonizing cholesterol in general, because cholesterol is so good for you. Like your body needs it for hormone production or synthesizing hormones. Your brain needs it to function. Like
brain health.
We need cholesterol. So I don't like for people to be afraid to consume dietary fats, healthy sources of dietary fats. So obviously like not the seed oils like we've been saying, but like animal fats. We can't demonize the butter. We can't demonize the ghee. We can't demonize the beef fat. Like,
or eggs too.
Or eggs, exactly.
Which I
like,
love.
oh my gosh, egg whites. I'm like, eat the yolk.
Right. I always say, like, I am such a big believer in like adding egg whites to your eggs for extra protein. But yeah, I mean, I could eat like a dozen eggs a day. I love eggs.
Yes. Yeah. So don't be afraid to eat fat, because dietary fat is not going to have an impact on your like blood cholesterol levels.
Right.
And fun fact, triglycerides are really tied to your metabolic health. So if you have dysregulated blood sugar, your insulin resistance, that can be tied to an elevation in triglycerides.
Right.
But, you know, for years, what did we hear from like government officials or entities? That this was bad, saturated fat was bad, it causes negative cardiac events or heart disease, and that couldn't be further from the truth.
Exactly. Yeah. I love that. Okay. So speaking of fat, I want to talk about like hormone health, because I feel like that's obviously like a big part of it, making sure that you're getting like the nutrients you need. So when it comes to hormone health and like what we're seeing going wrong, like what are your takes on it when it comes to living a clean lifestyle?
Yeah. So for women specifically, and I think this is a good conversation for us to have because you're in the fitness industry. But your hormones are affected by many things. You mentioned earlier endocrine disrupting chemicals, which your endocrine system is responsible for the release of hormones. So your environment matters when it comes to your hormones. What you eat impacts your hormones. So if I see women that are eating super low fat, like you need fat, you need dietary fat for your hormones. And then from a fitness standpoint, if I see women who are training HIIT style day in and day out, that's going to put a lot of stress because a female hormone profile is very different than a male hormone profile. And so if you see a guy doing HIIT workouts, he can handle that extra stress. Women can't. So, I mean, even like things like intermittent fasting, which could, over the long term, I'm going to qualify it. I am not saying all intermittent fasting is bad. I think it can be used in temporary cases for specific things and be good. But I see a lot of women essentially starving themselves the first half of the day, every single day. And then they're like, oh my gosh, my thyroid is shot. My hair is falling out. And I'm like, stop fasting for that long. You need to eat something.
Right. Because it's hard to fit the amount of calories you need within that window if you're doing it every day.
That's exactly right. If your eating window is only from 1 to 7, you have 6 hours to essentially get in all the nutrients that you need for your body to function properly. It's not going to work.
Right. Which could be around 1,800 to 2,000 calories for somebody. And that's a lot of food if you're prioritizing those whole foods. So,
and if you're eating, this is a digestive and blood sugar issue. If you, in that 6 hour window, you're constantly eating every hour in order to get that, your body doesn't have enough time to digest the food properly. It takes about 4 to 5 hours for the body to actually digest food properly. And then your blood sugar is going to have natural rises and dips. Well, when you eat, your blood sugar is going to naturally rise. But if you keep eating, it's just going to keep rising. So you're going to end up with spikes and dips and dysregulated blood sugar.
Right.
And then if you're eating late into the night, so let's say you're like, oh, well, I'm going to eat, at 9 p.m. because all I had was one meal today. Well, that's going to affect your sleep hormones. And then it's going to cause cortisol issues. And then when you wake up, it's not good.
Yeah, it sounds like a nightmare.
It is a nightmare.
Yeah.
So I tell people, when you wake up, try to eat within 30 minutes to an hour of waking. And I would rather you eat dinner earlier. So stop your eating earlier than do an intermittent fasting in the morning. So,
and that's what I do. I feel like my body responds better to that because it it's a nice break to go through that process, digestion. But, I'm not waiting until 12 p.m. the next day.
Correct.
Right.
And something that people may not know, as the sun goes down, your sleep hormones are released. Well, when your sleep hormones are released, it has implications for other organs and organ systems in the body, particularly your pancreas. Your pancreas is responsible for insulin output. Well, when the sleep hormones are released, your pancreas slows down because those sleep hormones are signaling to your body that it's time to start getting tired. We need to rest. Sleep is meant for restorative functions. So if you're eating late at night, you're not as metabolically flexible. Your pancreas is not firing on all cylinders. And then it interferes with your sleep. And now instead of sleeping and restoring, you're digesting while you're sleeping.
Right. Gosh,
and so you're not recovering. You're not recovering fully or properly. So I would rather you have dinner at 5 p.m. And not eat until the next day at 7 a.m., which would be a 14-hour fast, than eat at 9 p.m. and wake up the next day and not eat until 12. That just seems crazy to me.
That's so good. And honestly, I feel like for my listeners, it's a lot of women, a lot of moms out there.
Yeah.
So our kids like to eat early anyways.
Yes,
so.
It works out in our favor.
Right. But honestly, no, I've seen a lot of my clients come through too that it's not just the late night dinners, but the late night snacking and eating and binging, right? Yep. That goes with that. So it's the same mindset of just making sure you're getting enough calories in the day of the right foods and then giving your body that break to do its work, and things will be more balanced in that sense.
And do it with the sun.
Right.
So think about our ancestors before, light bulbs or artificial light was a thing. You had to do your work and eat when the sun was out because when the sun went down and it was dark, you had to go to bed. You didn't have a choice. That's how your body works. So you need to be eating when the sun comes up, and as the sun goes down, that's when we want to stop our eating.
That's so good.
Because your body is doing all kinds of things in the background that it needs to do to get ready for that rest, recovery, repair, and restorative functions while you're sleeping.
I love that.
So we hinder it.
Yep. We were born that way.
Out of our own way.
Okay. I want to talk about the correlation between eating properly, fueling yourself, and then type of workouts that you do as well when it comes to like the fitness world. And you kind of touched on it, like those HIIT workouts. So personally, my style of training this past year has really changed, and I've seen some things come up with my own hormones that I'm trying to work through right now. I'm actually got my labs done, trying to figure out next steps just because my cycle has been kind of messed up.
Yep.
And again, I'm training for high rocks, totally different ball game. I also ran a marathon last year. Like just my body's been through a lot. So what's your take on that when it comes to making sure you're fueling yourself properly and then like style of workouts?
I think your style of workout doesn't have to be crazy intense. I think you can simplify it. Some resistance training, weight training. It doesn't have to be a ton of cardio for you to see changes in your body, because the changes are going to come with your nutrition. Mm-hmm. And you know, the saying go, abs are made in the kitchen.
Absolutely. I'm a big believer of that though.
Yeah, exactly. In your case, if you were dealing with hormonal issues, maybe, you know, an irregular cycle, and you're doing HIIT style training or marathon training, your body is just depleted.
Right.
And so I would personally change the style of workout to more just like simple weightlifting. And then after the weightlifting, maybe like walking on an incline. Like you don't need to do anything that would put additional stress on your hormones. And then also with marathon training or like a high rock style training, you're expending so many calories and so much energy that it's going to take a lot for you to replenish that. And that's really hard to do. So if I was in your shoes, or if you have listeners that are doing the same style workout as you and you're dealing with hormonal issues, one, I would up my caloric intake and make sure that I'm getting a lot of healthy fats, good sources of protein, like really fueling my body. So upping all of that. And then maybe when you're done with the competition, changing your style of workout.
Right. Yeah.
And don't run any more marathons.
I know. I hate to tell you, I got one coming up in November. But honestly, here's the thing. It's like, and my listeners know this, my following, that I started my athletic journey just a few years ago. So it's like, I'm not perfect. I don't have like all the education and insight on how to do this perfectly. It's like I'm learning as I'm going, because like I did my first marathon last year. I just did my first high rocks this past year. I'm doing it solo. So I'm doing all the work myself. And just a couple weeks from now, like this is going to air after. But so hopefully I did well. Prayers.
You will.
But I'm also learning, okay, I've got to increase my calories here, right? It's like a learning process. So it's like I know the next time will be better. And I know that for my marathon, I'm going to equip myself nutritionally a lot better than I did this past time around. But, you know, again, to your point, our bodies, you know, it's not made to be in a state like that all the time. No. So for me, I'm going to do, you know, this season of high rocks and then change it. I mean, if I had to think of like the perfect style of workouts for me and what works well for me and what I've seen for my clients, it's like that low impact strength training, having a couple of sessions if you want of more high impact, that's fine. But like not doing that every day, like that's going to wreck your, obviously your hormone health. It's going to wreck the way you feel, your energy every single day. And just, it's not ideal.
It adds extra stress to the body. And if you think about stress, why would that stress be bad? I'm not saying exercise is bad. Right. It's a form of good stress, but doing certain styles where it's a constant stress all the time, it's going to affect your nervous system. And so the body's going to perceive you to be in fight or flight, which, you know, hundreds of years ago, like, okay, we need to be fight or flight to run away from a bear. But if you're constantly doing HIIT workouts and running all day for a marathon, the body perceives it the same way. It doesn't know the difference.
Right.
It thinks you're running from a bear. So instead of being in a parasympathetic state, which is like your rest and relax, it's in a constant state of being sympathetic. So it's sympathetic dominance. And so you just have to be mindful of that. Stress is not inherently bad. It's good for the body to encounter stress every now and then so that it stays adaptable and it adjusts. But constantly exposing the body to stress where it becomes chronic then has impacts for your nervous system.
Right.
And your nervous system's tied to everything.
Everything.
Your hormones,
everything.
your metabolic health. I mean, everything. So,
and that's what I've learned too, is like as an athlete, like recovery is so important. So like sauna, cold tub, you know.
Well, those add stress to the body too.
Oh God. Oh, no. Okay. So talk to me about that.
Think about that.
Because I know it's different too for like men and women and like different times of your cycles. I've heard.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in the sauna and cold tub. So I want to hear your take on it.
I'm not saying don't do these things.
Okay.
But think about what your routine is right now. The exercise, the sauna, the cold plunge, these are all forms of hormetic stress. Not inherently bad. Mm-hmm. But if you are doing a HIIT workout, running a bunch, coming home, sauna, cold plunge, that's stress. Mm-hmm. Not to mention the normal stresses that
of life.
Correct.
Career,
you're
kids.
A mom, you have kids, you're running a business. So your body's never getting a break.
Yeah.
And for women, when you're on your cycle and you have a period, while you're on your period, you really should be reducing those stressors.
Right.
So you should be changing up your workouts. They should be low impact while you're on your cycle. And so I tell people a sauna is not bad. Sauna is great. Infrared sauna is great. Cold plunge isn't inherently bad. But if you're already having hormonal issues, you gotta back off some of these stressors.
Mm-hmm. So doing it every day probably not be the smartest thing for your body.
Probably not the smartest thing.
All right then. No, that's really good insight too, because it's one of those things where
you're already doing the HIIT workouts every day,
right,
and the running every day. So then if you're doing sauna and cold plunge every day,
it's a lot of stress. And that's why,
and you have kids every day, you can't get rid of those.
And that's why my biggest thing to anybody is sleep. I think sleep is the biggest thing you can do to support your overall health.
Yes.
That's where you're going to recover. So that's really where I've been prioritizing. But no, that's good insight about the sauna and cold tub.
Yeah. I'm not saying don't do it.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that they're bad.
Yeah.
I'm a fan, but you have to use it wisely. Mm-hmm. Just like you have to use the HIIT workouts and the running nonstop wisely. It doesn't need to be an everyday occurrence.
And you, so you were in the bodybuilding industry and world.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Oh my gosh. I think I mentioned that previously, but after I was done playing sports in college, I'm very competitive.
Okay. I love it.
Super competitive. I started playing pickleball recently and I'm like,
I never played. Is it fun?
I don't care if the person across from me is 80 years old. I'm beating them. Right. So I'm super competitive. So I was in grad school and this was also at a time when all the girls were doing fitness competitions. This was 2012. I'm aging myself. And I was like, oh my gosh, before I knew about health, I'm like, I like how they look.
Right.
They look awesome. I want to look like that. So this might have been 2014 when I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I found a trainer. I started training and I saw all these results and I'm like, wow, this is awesome. But it was 16 weeks of very intense, very restrictive dieting. So I was not eating very much calories. I lost my period. My body fat percentage got way too low.
Because your coach had you on probably a bulk and then a cut, right? Part of that.
Yes. But I mean, even they cut your water intake at the end. The week before the show, I had maybe 16 ounces of water in an entire day. Oh my gosh. And because you're trying to shed the water weight. So throughout that experience, I realized, okay, A, the fitness industry has it all wrong. B, we're wrecking our guts and our metabolism. And C, a lot of girls, we had a team of girls. So a lot of my teammates were struggling with eating disorders. And that's very common in that bodybuilding fitness world. Luckily, I did not, but I dealt with some body dysmorphia issues afterwards because you love the way that you look the day of the show. Oh my gosh, I'm chiseled. I'm so toned. I'm so lean. I wish you think you're supposed to look like that every day, but really you're emaciated, you're malnourished, you're dehydrated.
You're starving.
You're starving because you're barely eating. So it's no way to live. It's not sustainable. And so the week after the show, I put on 12 or 14 pounds in 1 week.
Wow.
Just going back to normal eating. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm overweight. I'm fat. And I wasn't.
Right.
And so it really messed with me mentally. Luckily, my husband was like, you're crazy. You're never doing this again. I did not. I was a one and done. But I know girls who are still in the industry and they struggle with it. And it's hard to get out.
Oh yeah. And I think that would be very probably common for a lot of women that are in that world. And I personally, like I've talked about this on my platform, but I battled for a short time with an eating disorder. Yeah. And I personally know that would probably not be good for me.
No.
Not in the sense that I think I would ever go back to that. I know I wouldn't, but I think that there's trauma there underneath that could be brought out that I don't think would be good for me.
It would not be healthy.
Right.
And in fact, I tell all girls, like, don't do it.
Right.
My sister did one a few years ago and I told her, don't do it. You're going to destroy your health. Like, don't do it. But she was like, I want to do it. She did it. And afterwards she was like, I shouldn't have done it.
Wow.
I'm like, I told you.
And I think yeah, right. You're like, listen to me. No, but I do think there's like very few people that can do those types of shows and be in a good, healthy state of mind afterwards. And even the men.
Oh yeah. My uncle used to be a professional bodybuilder.
Wow.
Yeah. So like, he's the one,
did he deal with that too? Like the body dysmorphia?
Not, I think that's maybe less on the men's side because I think that they think they look good all the time.
Yeah. Ego.
Right, exactly. But it was very hard on his body.
Man.
And so like once he got out, he was like, I can't do that anymore. I mean, it's miserable. It is miserable. And it is. It's not fun. Like you're doing all of this for this one day to show off your body. And I'm like, I remember being on stage and I'm like, what am I doing?
Right.
I'm in this tiny bikini. I would never do this.
Right. I mean, it is truly amazing where the body can go,
Absolutely.
like state of form when it comes to showing the muscles that we have. But it's like, that's not sustainable.
No,
it's
and
like,
it wasn't worth it.
Right.
And I did destroy my metabolism. It took me a couple of years to like rebuild it.
Right. But honestly, I feel like for you sitting here today, it's like probably big part of your story too on the way you have like your mindset set on things. You know?
And how I view health. Because like I told you, my idea of health was very warped. I looked at other competitors as healthy based off how good they looked on stage.
Right.
I was like, wow, she's a picture of health. And meanwhile, our trainer was like on dialysis, had kidney issues.
Oh my goodness.
And so it's like, no, just because you look a certain way does not mean that you are healthy.
Right.
So
external views are not always what the internal views are. That's for sure.
No, because I know these girls now are dealing with hormonal issues, which can affect fertility. You can end up struggling to conceive. Everyone loses their period before the show because you are. I mean,
and there's nothing you can do to prevent that.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm sure there are girls who don't, but like everyone on our team,
right?
They told me that was the norm because your body fat percentage gets so low. So personally, I haven't met somebody who's like, oh yeah, my cycle stays regular while I am cutting for a show.
But I feel like you hear of that with a lot of athletes too, that like marathon runners and, you know.
Absolutely.
Again, I do think that not everybody deals with that. I know a lot of athletes that have normal cycles.
Different. But women, we have babies, we get pregnant, we breastfeed. Like we have to have a certain amount of fat.
And that's something that I want our listeners to know too, is that unfortunately, men can have a lot of different types of diets.
Yes.
And do a lot of different type of, you know, exercise that women can't do because our cycles are completely different.
Correct.
Hormones are completely different.
Yeah, men don't have babies. They don't get pregnant. They don't breastfeed. Women do. And so that makes it much different for us. So like we're not going to look as chiseled and toned and lean as men do, but that's okay.
That's okay.
Like it's okay that we're softer.
Right, exactly. And genetics play a big part of that as well. So it's not, you know, obviously nutrition, lifestyle, fitness is a big part, but you can't forget genetics. So, okay, I feel like I could keep going because there are so many good topics and discussions that we've had, but we are wrapping up. So are you up for a little game?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. So a little rapid fire for you.
I'm nervous.
Don't be. I'm just going to ask you all the hardest questions.
Yeah, ask me all the hard ones.
All right. Almond milk or coconut milk?
Coconut milk.
Why?
Because coconut is a healthier source of fat and almonds.
Yeah. I agree with that.
A higher oxalate food. They had a lot of fillers in there. Like just get a full fat coconut milk.
I love coconut milk too.
Yeah.
It's just so good. Okay. Stevia or raw honey?
Raw honey.
Yes. Stevia has it's not as good as people think it is.
Yeah. And it's about the extraction and the processing. And
all right.
the sourcing.
Fermented foods or probiotics?
Fermented foods.
Gluten-free pasta or chickpea pasta?
Neither.
But I love my chickpea pasta. You can find some that are like not bad.
Chickpea is soaked in glyphosate.
Oh, God. There's some brands, right?
It's a heavily sprayed crop.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So you'd have to get organic.
I agree.
Get an organic one.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
Wool dryer balls or reusable dryer sheets?
Wool dryer balls. Because you can infuse them with essential oils and change the scent.
Ooh, I have never tried that.
Yeah, you could put like 15 or 20 drops of like your favorite smelling essential oils, and then your clothes come out smelling that way.
What? Yes. I've just thrown them in there. So, okay, I need to try that next time.
Yeah, you could put like lavender or
love it.
Citrus or whatever. Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying it tonight. All right, glass spray bottles or stainless steel spray bottles?
Glass.
Epsom salt baths or essential oil diffusers?
Epsom salt baths.
I love an Epsom salt bath.
Look at your ingredients though.
Yeah. When it comes to fragrance.
If you look at the Epsom salt baths, sometimes they add additional ingredients that you're like, wait, why is this not just Epsom salt?
Yeah, that needs to be like the only ingredient.
Yeah.
Dry brushing or gua sha?
Oh, both.
I know, that's a hard one.
It's a hard one.
If you had to pick one.
Gua sha.
I would say that too.
Well, because I don't do Botox.
Yeah.
Or fillers or anything. So
you have like the best skin.
Oh, thank you.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. I'm about to be 35 and I've never done it. So I'm like trying to age gracefully.
Yes. And we didn't even get to talk about beauty products, but she has like a ton on her Instagram of like good brands.
I like a 12-step skincare routine. I'm over here trying to.
No, I mean, gosh, I feel like everybody's going to go to your Instagram and do it now. All right. Avoid dyes or artificial sweeteners?
Both.
Yeah. I would have to say both to that one too.
You have to say both.
Yes.
Anything artificial, avoid.
Right.
Artificial flavor, artificial dye, artificial sweetener. The term artificial means fake.
So stay away from artificial.
Not real. It's artificial.
Yep. All right. Gluten-free or dairy-free?
Neither.
Do we have another 20 minutes?
It depends. I'll just quickly say, for thousands of years, humans have had wheat, right? They've made bread. But what did we do to the wheat? We hybridized it. We sprayed it with glyphosate. And that causes gut issues, leaky gut. And that's what made people more sensitive to it. On the flip side, what did we do to the dairy? Dairy was raw forever. And we pasteurized it. We added things to it. And now people don't tolerate it.
Right.
So I don't think gluten or dairy are inherently bad. I think what we've done to them is bad. And now people can't tolerate them.
Right.
So if you have a sensitivity to it, obviously don't consume it. But if you can find like an ancient, like a einkorn, for example. Einkorn, I believe, is one of the few forms of wheat or flours that has not been hybridized or touched.
Oh, good. And then also to like the farmer's market.
And then
or
you
like
can go to the farmer's market for raw dairy, like raw milk, raw cheese. Again, if you have a true allergy or sensitivity, it's not going to matter whether it's raw or einkorn, but stay like away.
Blood work, you can figure that out too, right? Right. Wild caught fish or organic farm raised?
Wild caught all the way.
Yes. And I feel like people aren't educated with that either. So
I know,
remember
that's
that
a whole
one,
other. We need a part 2.
All right. Peanut butter or almond butter?
Probably almond butter. Only because peanuts are notorious for being moldy.
Right. And I learned about that a couple of years ago. Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah. But I would coffee. Make either organic.
Okay. And that was my last one. Coffee or matcha?
Matcha.
Yeah, I love matcha.
No coffee.
Yeah. And what are your takes on coffee in the morning? Like because I here's the thing. I do love my coffee, but I have learned to eat breakfast with it or beforehand. So what are your thoughts on like people in the morning with coffee?
Yeah, I think at least have something in your stomach before you have it.
Right.
Like don't have it on an empty stomach. The caffeine has implications for cortisol levels, for blood sugar. And a lot of coffee is sprayed with pesticides. It's moldy. So pay attention to the sourcing of the coffee. Also, even the acidity of it can have implications for your gut. So like coffee is not for everyone. And I almost always eliminate coffee with clients because they're relying it as their source of energy. And it just creates this roller coaster throughout the day, right? So they have a cup of coffee in the morning. That has implications for their blood sugar. Then they have that afternoon crash. What do they have to do? Another cup of coffee. Then that gives them the boost. And then they have another dip or crash in the evening time and they're super fatigued before bed. And so I always try to get people to the point where their body functions properly without the need for a beverage to function. Now, if you want to have the beverage because you enjoy it, that's one thing. But always look at your daily rhythms and habits. And I don't think that a beverage needs to be a part of your daily rhythm and habit to function.
Right.
Right? Because most people are like, no, you can't take away my cup of coffee because I can't function without it.
Right.
And that lets me know
there's an issue there.
Correct.
Right. That's a good one. And
correct. Like if you can't put it down or like eliminate it.
You have to have it first thing in the morning. You have to have it.
That lets me know we need a full elimination.
Right. And I didn't really know about like the mold and with coffee and everything until, but like symptoms like brain fog, right? Like that's a huge one.
Absolutely.
So if you're experiencing that, maybe cut out the coffee. And how would you say for somebody that wants to cut out coffee? Because I feel like all my clients are that way. Would you say like
cold turkey?
Cold turkey. Yeah,
yes,
that's what I say.
You will have withdrawal symptoms. Yeah. No doubt. Headache,
which
fatigue,
is wild. That just shows like there's an issue.
Correct. That's exactly what I say.
Yeah.
What I tell people is like, here's a good test. Eliminate the coffee. If you have no withdrawal symptoms, your body is not dependent on it.
There you go.
If you have withdrawal symptoms and you like have a headache, feel like crap, you're tired, or whatever, like any type of withdrawal symptom, your body's become dependent on it.
That's
to function.
Such good truth. Okay, before we wrap up really quickly, where can people find you if they want to learn more, keep up with you? You have just so much good insight.
Oh, you're so sweet. On Instagram, they can find me at Amy Migdalia.
Okay.
My website is www.amymigdalia.com. There's a tab on the website. It says work with us. That's how you can find more information if you want to work with us. And then we have my business page, which is Restor Your Health. The second E is a 3 because we take a 3-step approach. So RESTOR 3 Your Health.
I love it. Okay, cool. And then one last question. I like to ask all my guests this because Empower, obviously my podcast name. Yeah. It's also like my fitness app name. What does being empowered mean to you?
Gosh, that's such a good question. I think from a health standpoint, being empowered means that you have the knowledge and education to make the choices that you need for your health or the health of your family. Because if you're not educated, then you're not equipped. And if you're not equipped, you're not empowered. So you need the education to be equipped so that you're empowered to make the decisions that you need to take back your health.
That's so good.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to start using that now.
We say that. We say educated, empowered, and equipped. It's the 3 E's: eating, environment, extras, educated, equipped, and empowered.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming on. It was really great.
Yeah, thanks for having me.